Hello, everyone. Come on in.
Yeah, the number is just ticking up and up and up.
Great. Hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. We'll get started in just another couple minutes. We'll let some folks jump in. We're excited for today's webinar. I'm recording from Bozeman headquarters. Bozeman is officially open for business, so I am at the XYPN headquarters today. It is not snowing.
Thankfully, June
Thankfully.
10.
Yeah, all the ski mountains are closed. All right, we'll get started in just another couple seconds. Let some last folks jump in. All right, let's do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our monthly webinar. I'm Maddie Roach. I'm XYPN's Director of Member Services. Been with the team since nearly day one. I've hosted this webinar for a number of years. It's one of my favorites every month because we get an awesome opportunity to talk to some of our non-members. The great thing about membership is that we are as transparent as we can be about the types of resources we offer advisors like you, the journey that we expect you to go through as you run your RIA, and we try to share with even our non-members as much resources and support as possible, knowing that when the time is right, you will jump into membership and begin your RIA journey with us. That being said, today we have an awesome XYPN staff member on the line. She's a coach of ours in the marketing realm. Carolyn Dalle-Molle has been with XYPN in a part-time and now full-time capacity for a number of years. And what makes Carolyn so badass is that she is an expert in marketing state registered RIAs. That is the benefit of working with XYPN coaches generally, is that we are very, very, very familiar with the state registered RIA space, so that when you listen to the webinars, the coaching, the programming that Carolyn has input with, you can trust that it is really tailored to the experience of the state registered RIA. That being said, I always have some housekeeping items for all of you. I do want to remind you that next month we'll be here again, July 8th. We're going to be talking about the sales process for your RIA, how to customize a winning sales process. And we're going to have our sales coach, BB Webb, on that webinar. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Please come back next month and register for that. And we'll be doing the same thing then. Of course, I would love to be able to have Carolyn answer some live question and answers. So go ahead and drop your questions in the Q&A. The chat is going to be filled with our XYPN team, sending out resources to different links links to different resources that we have related on the topics we're going to talk about today. But I really love for any live questions to go into the Q&A component. Carolyn and I have talked through what questions that were submitted beforehand we're going to try to address. You know our style. We want to be able to get as much information jam-packed in this hour as possible. We will go to the top of the hour. That being said, as things come up, just drop them in the Q&A and we will try to address them. All right, without further ado, let me make sure I've covered everything. I have covered everything. There we go. I'm going to go off video for a little bit, let Carolyn take the stage. Carolyn, feel free to introduce yourself and your work, and I'll be back for question and answer.
Thank you, Maddie. Yeah, let's kick it off. I'm going to share some slides here today because, as Maddie said, we want to jam-pack this with value. I am, as Maddie said, Carolyn Dalle-Molle. I'm the marketing coach in-house here for members, and I run a variety of programs, not the least of which are webinars, just like the one you're attending here today. I also do small group format coaching, where I stick with a small group for weeks on end and we tackle a project. And there's a whole slew of on-demand resources that you would have access to as well through XYPN Academy, should you become a member down the line. But today, the topic is how to create a launch marketing plan for your RIA. I would like to kick it off and handle questions as they come in, but also toward the end. So let's talk about launching. Specifically today, we're going to cover when to launch, who you can make the announcement to, what assets you need, and also a little bit on how to build hype. That's one of the biggest questions I get from members is, okay, I'm about to launch. How do I build some hype in order to make sure that when I do launch, people are interested and care? This training is more about strategy. So it's much more about planning to launch and getting your head straight about what you should be doing in your launch versus small to-dos like update your LinkedIn profile. So just get your head wrapped around the kind of bigger picture, bigger decisions, and I'm going to help you make some of those today. Specifically, I will give everyone a moment to grab a scrap piece of paper, if you could, and a pen. You can also choose to do this digitally if you prefer. I tend to prefer scrap sheets of paper for brainstorming. But while you grab your paper, I do tend to make my trainings very interactive and almost like a workshop, so that you're not just listening to concepts, you're actually applying them and making decisions during this hour. I have found it in the years that I've been coaching members here in the network to be the most effective use of our time. Let's actually get some decisions made together here today. So you can lay out your paper like the one that you see on the screen and leave some space at the bottom as well. Specifically though, we're going to start with when, who, and what. I'll give you just another 20 seconds or so, assuming you can pull this together really quickly. And we'll hop into that first section, when to launch. For when to launch, I'm gonna go quickly through this decision because it's pretty straightforward. But in the chat box, write down an idea. What are your ideas for when you can launch? What are some things that you will need to have ready and completed? One of the biggest ones that I often see come through the chat is you need to be registered. This is number one. You can launch after you are registered. You cannot launch before you are registered. So that's a big one. That's the first thing we should address here today. Must be registered. The second thing is you can launch once your launch marketing is ready. So that will, this hour here together today is getting you one step closer to this being true. But once you feel like you have some marketing prepared, you're also getting close to being ready to launch. There are one more thing, sorry. The other thing to consider is once you're prepared to take on your first 5 clients. That is another moment when you're like, okay, I have the back end work done. I'm ready to start some financial planning. I could imagine myself accepting 5 clients. Great. You are even more ready to launch. So I raise these 3 considerations as something that will affect the date you choose for your launch. Also though, before we choose a date, you should be avoiding a few times of year, specifically when people are very busy or just generally consumed by other major things in the media. By this, I mean a major holiday. Let's not launch on Easter Sunday, as an example. It might not be a great use of your launch materials. Another is a big national event, such as a presidential election. Some folks have made this mistake in the past, and it can just create a little bit of a lull in your launch week if everyone else is just paying attention to the presidential election, right? So let's not choose that week. And then also consider specific times of the year that are extra busy or consuming for your ideal client. A great example of this is if you are working with young parents, then probably late August, early September isn't a great time to launch either. They're just generally busy getting ready for their kids' new school year. You could think of lots of specific moments that just might want to avoid. It also can be as simple as avoiding that week. It's not like you can't launch in August or September. Just don't launch the first week of school because they're probably too busy to notice your promotions or read that email, see the updates on LinkedIn, attend an event. You get the idea. So with those considerations, the must-haves and the items to avoid on your paper, I suggest writing down 2 potential launch dates right now. And choose literal specific days. Don't say July. Write down a potential launch date in July. For instance, if you are already registered and you're just now starting to prepare to take on those first 5 clients, maybe July 15th is a day you can do, or maybe the 3rd Monday in July. Or maybe you're looking at September. You're looking and you're preparing far out. That's cool too. What day in September might you choose as a launch date? And then after that date that you've chosen, maybe write down the date that's 2 weeks later, just to give yourself some buffer in case you miss that first date that you chose. All right, that part is pretty straightforward. It's choosing your when. Coming up next, we're going to talk about who you can launch to, what you might try to say, and what assets you should have ready. Regarding who to contact, there's one big thing I pose to you as a marketing coach. And that is the question, who will care that you're opening a firm? There are people that will care. In fact, I'm about to show you a list of different types of people that will care. But from a marketing perspective, in order to have effective marketing, the person that you're telling has to care. If you run up to a random stranger and tell them at the grocery store you're launching a firm, they might be like, okay, good for you. But this isn't going to generate business for your firm. That's going to be a weird person to tell. There are people around you and from your past that will care. So in the who part of your paper, we're going to walk down in order a handful of categories of people that will care. Also, right off the bat, I want to say that the first person that cares is you. You are the person that cares the most, and it's important to just acknowledge that, because sometimes our own excitement can get in the way of good marketing decisions because we think everyone cares just as much and in the same way that we do. Acknowledge that you care a lot, acknowledge that you care about every little detail. Great, that is true. There are other people that will care and in different ways than you do. Hugely powerful in marketing. So a real category here are the people who care about you personally. This is your, group of friends from college. This is your family on your spouse's side. This is a former colleague that you worked with 5 years ago that truly care about you as an individual. They're going to be interested in the fact that you've launched a firm. So write this down, people who care about me, and you might say in-laws, you might say former colleagues, you might say people that were in my grad program with me. And you might even, probably later after this webinar, go through the exact people, right? It's like Janice and Rosemary and Trevor, and you get the picture. Number 3, though, are people who have a serious pain point. These are what I like to call solution seekers. These are the people that you actually might not be able to name, but are individuals that are in the world and have a problem they are looking to solve. They have to be aware of that pain point, though, in the context of your launch audience. You can talk to the grander audience, the grander consumer audience, as you grow and as you progress in your firm. But when it comes to launch day, hey, I've launched this solution. The people who are going to care about launch day in that moment of you saying, I have a solution, are the people who are saying, oh my gosh, that solves my immediate pain that I have today. So you can call those people solution seekers. And number 4 are people who generally care about new businesses. This is the business side of things. There are certain people in the press that cover launching firms, particularly in the local markets that you are in. There are podcasters that interview entrepreneurs or career changers, people who are doing innovative things. There are center of influences there, you know, whether it be an attorney or a local community leader for your target market that wants to send their people to a valued resource. The whole thing is, this is kind of the B2B moment. Maybe even local advisors that have minimums and you don't have a minimum because you're fee-based. Cool. So these are the categories of people who will care. Please make sure you're at least writing down these categories. And the next level of taking this list is writing down literal names of people. So take a moment here. I will pause for 30 seconds maybe and write down who will care. Okay, that was about 30 seconds. You can continue to build out that list, always reminding yourself who's going to care and why, because this now is going to be a master list. So when you really, really fill out those 3 categories, you are going to realize there's a lot of people on the list, and that's a lot of outreach to do. Oh my gosh, how am I going to contact everyone that I'm writing down here? The press, other businesses, you know, those COI people. I'm going to have to reach out, former colleagues and family, friends. It explodes and you see a lot of opportunity. So here's a pro tip. Many of advisors think of their launch plan as an email. I'm going to launch, I'm going to send an email. Okay, I've launched. Please think beyond this. You can do this. It's pretty straightforward, and email is a useful form of communication right now. But expand your mind and please think beyond the email. When I coach individual advisors through their launch, we map out an entire month of activity really easily, because there are a lot of people, a lot of categories of people that will care. And even if you send a single email, do we do a follow-up? Or is that email inviting them to an event? Do we have a launch event? Do we have a launch virtual event? Do you do a whole slew of very generous, almost pro bono work to get your name out there? There can be a launch month. So please keep that in mind. Now that you know who you're going to reach out to, we are very, very able to do more than just email here. So let this list get long. It can be a whole month of activity should you have a long list. So now we have our list of people. Okay, now let's look at the right side column. What are we going to say? For this, there are, again, categories of things to tell people. It doesn't always have to be the same message. In fact, it shouldn't be the same message. So it's easy to announce to a sibling or a best friend. You can just send them a text like, hey sis, my business is officially launching on Monday. I'm so excited, right? Like those kinds of things are easy. But what do we say to the other categories? You know, not your sister, not your best friend, not your, neighbor. Like those people are going to care and you can tell them very casually. But for each person on that list, it's not like a casual text message is going to do. What will they create? What will they care about? And we can now create a map. The question I posed for you in regards to what to say is, what part of your launch do these people care about specifically? Because it's not every part or every fact about your firm that they will care about. Usually, one part of it is going to be the opening line, is going to be that grab that you emphasize. That's going to be, taking up 80% of your message to them. You should emphasize what they care about. So one idea, one category of your news is why I made this career move. I always think about if I told my in-laws that I was launching a new firm, they would care why I made this career move. Well, Carolyn, why are you going from marketing other firms to launching your own firm? They would very much have that as their first question. But if I was pitching a podcast host, they don't really care about me. They don't care about Carolyn. They might actually care about the firm's benefits to people, right? If I was like, hey, I think I have a good story for your podcast audience. This is the work my firm is designed to do. Here's the ins and outs of what we can do. That is the part that a podcast host might care about. There's also what your expertise is. If I was talking to a local CPA, they would want to know, well, how are you different from other people? What's your expertise? I've talked to dozens of planners in my career. Why are you different? Who would I even send to you? What is your expertise? Another obvious one is just straight up, who do you serve? This is particularly useful when you have a specific expertise for a specific audience. We have members who have a slew of niche is the word, niche target audiences. If you go to the Find an Advisor profile and read a few bios, you'll see, former military, elementary school teachers, newlyweds, a lot of people, a lot of different people you can serve. And if you come out and you say that, it can be very compelling in your launch. But this list really can go on and on. What to say is, well, what part do they care about specifically? So your next step with your paper is to map each person to what you should emphasize. This is the point of emphasis. It's not like you can just walk up to that CPA and say, I specialize in helping newlyweds buy their first home, and stop talking. It's a great opening line to emphasize. And that's what we're going to map out here today. But you can also share your background, how someone could get started, what your process is, all the fun details that you are creating right now as you think about launching your firm. So that is the what piece, what to emphasize for each audience. Already, if you're creating this map, you are leaps and bounds ahead of the single person who's thinking they're going to send a single email to just everyone that they have their email for, right? So sometimes when you are thinking of launching your RIA, you're saying, all right, pull out all the email addresses I have and just send one master email and bam, there's launch. You can do that. There are plenty of firms that do. But if you want it to be effective and you want to plan your launch, map each type of person to the message, that you should emphasize, because everyone is going to care for a different reason. I'm going to check the chat briefly. Looks like we're doing well in the chat. And a couple questions are coming through. Okay, Q&A. I'm going to quickly pause because there are two and they're very quick to answer. Ricky has asked, when you say assets to have ready, are these financial assets or marketing assets? Marketing, specifically talking about marketing assets. And that is coming up, Ricky, in slides that I'm about to show. And Anonymous asked, what are some examples of beyond email for how to announce the launch? I have also have prepared a slide that's coming up for that one. Great, so let's move on to how, because that's basically what Ricky and the anonymous submitter have asked. So how to contact people. Let's see, great. The ultimate question that I pose for how to reach people, how to contact them is, how are you able to contact these people? You have your list of people, you know what to emphasize because you know what they're going to care about. Well, how are you able to reach them? It's not like you're able to walk up to everyone's front door. It's not like you're probably even able to email everyone because you might not have everybody's email address. So this is the prompt. First glance, how are you able? You can write down the options you have, then consider which will be best. And if you have multiple things, the question might be, which is the most standout, right? You could announce this to, let's go back to your former coworker, former colleague example. You probably are connected on LinkedIn. You probably have their phone number and email, and you probably see them every couple months. Well, you have 4 options. What will be the most standout way to launch to that person? Obviously, there's email. There's always LinkedIn. It's a very popular thing that's discussed. There's the good old phone call. There's also physical mail. You might send invites to something. There's always in person. Right now, in the current environment, that is challenging, but it does exist, especially if we're talking for a future launch. You're starting to build out a launch plan here because you now have a course of action to follow. So we've done the when, who, what, and how. I'm going to continue moving on because I think also this part is very easy for you to coach yourself through. And it's going to be unique for every single contact on each of your lists. So already with this many people on the call, we probably have a million different varieties of what's going to happen in each of your launch plans because it's going to become so tailored to your audience and what they care about, right? Here come the marketing assets. For marketing specific needs, there are again a few categories that we have. Specifically, to be ready to launch, you definitely need, from a marketer's perspective, a concise and specific statement about who you serve. And I very much say who you serve, concise and specific statement. I wrote this sentence very intentionally. There are multiple reasons for this. It is a huge asset and it is the first on my list because knowing this statement helps every other piece of marketing you will do over your first several months of running the RIA. It should be so concise and specific that other people can repeat it too. Because imagine your best friend was walking around saying, oh my gosh, you've got to work with Carolyn. I'll use my own name. I think she helps people file their taxes. She's awesome. She's like so great. Love her. But they're walking around saying that and you don't do tax work. They just kind of thought you did because they knew it was finance and they remember a conversation you had around tax season. Okay? That's a huge missed opportunity during a launch. If people don't know how to talk about you and you don't know how to talk about you, we aren't ready to launch. This is an asset you need and it is an asset. I would encourage you to write down multiple ideas and talk with a handful of different people about your statement before you launch because it should be concise, specific, and easy for another person to repeat. This is huge. It's a huge deal. I will let that one lay, and if we get back to it in the Q&A, we certainly can. The second asset is a place for people to learn more. Very often in today's firm, it is a website, but more generally, you can take it as a place for people to learn more. Because as soon as you say your statement, or as soon as someone hears your statement, if they care and they're interested, where do they go? What do they do? Where can they look to learn more? That's an asset you need. And I saw a lot of questions come about website in the Q&A. We can get to those as we have our hour together. But you certainly need a place for people to learn more. Thirdly, a way to get involved. During launch, a lot of people will be excited for you. They might love what they see. Is the only option to call you right now? If the only option is to let's have coffee, let's have a phone call, you might miss out on a good amount of people that are interested but not really ready to hop on the phone today. So the launch is a big hype moment. It is something for you to talk about, right? It gives you something to announce, to share. There's momentum. They see your website, but they're not ready to call. What do? I put on the screen for you to research what's called middle of the funnel marketing. It is this idea that there are some people that will hear what you do, get excited, look at and learn more, and as they're headed toward the sale, a lot of people get stuck in the middle of the funnel because many firms who are new to marketing don't even know that the middle of the funnel exists. So if this is a new concept to you and you're not really sure what to do, just do a little research, a little Googling on middle of the funnel, and think of at least one thing you could implement before launch. One last thing is an email address. It should say or other. I'm sorry, typo, but an email address or other. And this is about a way for people to contact you proactively if they have a question or they want to back and forth with you. So another idea could be your phone number, whether it's for a text or call, but honestly, it usually ends up being email address. So that's what I put on the slide. And we have some more resources coming through in the chat from the team. So if you have additional things that you want to research, you can be clicking on the links that are being provided in the chat right now. We're almost at the end here. So this is the moment when you can write down at the bottom of your sheet of paper, what assets do you still need to work on? This is a little bit of a to-do list. You probably already have the awareness that you need an email address, but you need to work on that specific, concise statement. Do you need to work on your website? Do you need to research middle of the funnel? Mark those down as to-do items because it's a great thing to be including for your launch plan. We have one last section before we hop into Q&A where I can go back and forth with some of the questions that you've been asking. And that last section is how to build hype. This one is tricky because it's a compliance related question for the marketer. So we do have some rules under which we need to operate. And one of the biggest questions I still get though is how can I build some hype before launching? Compliance tells us there's no solicitation allowed, no solicitation of business prior to registration. So before you are registered, you cannot solicit business. You cannot be posting on social media about your firm. You cannot be collecting emails. You cannot be passing out business cards. I have worked with our compliance team to double, triple check that this is just the way it is. You can mention kind of like offline, one-on-one that you are working towards starting a firm. That's fine. You know, if you're offline talking to your spouse, talking to your family that you're working to start a firm, you're not running into compliance issues. You just cannot really start to market, collect information, give out your information, do any of those business interactions, even posting on social media before you're registered. You could run into compliance issues. So given that, are our hands tied? Can we not build hype? There is a workaround. So the workaround is account for some hype weeks after you're registered. This is an optional thing. You do not have to build hype. It's just something to consider if it's been a lingering question in your mind. So this might adjust the date that you wrote at the start of today's presentation. You might want to add some weeks in for building hype once you're registered. That is the moment that you can be posting teasers on social media, or you can be collecting emails on that landing page, or you can be passing out business cards when you're meeting people. Maybe you haven't launched yet, but you are registered. You must be registered. So we want to make that crystal clear, but I like the workaround of just building in some hype weeks. It's totally fine. Again, you just must be registered. But make sure that you're kind of speaking positively and confidently with poise about what you're doing, and just develop a go-to way of describing what you do using that clear, concise statement. Great way to go out and just be building up some hype before that initial launch moment that you kick off, given all the work you've already done in the past 30 minutes today. So that was really fast. I wanted to hit the major points within 30 to 40 minutes. Mission accomplished. We do have a fair amount of questions that have come in live here today, so we can address those. And also a lot of you submitted questions prior to today's meeting. So we have a whole bank of stuff we can address. And I believe Maddie is back here for working through the questions together.
Yes, awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Carolyn. What a great presentation. Let's go ahead and answer just a couple that were submitted in live time. Would you consider having a separate cell phone for your business purposes?
Yes, I would consider it. And definitely I would consider having a separate phone number. So if you're not really ready on day one to have a second iPhone or something for your firm, you can, a nice middle ground is to create a unique number that can ring to that same device, right? So it could be one device, two phone numbers, your personal phone number, and then, for instance, Google Voice, you can create a free phone number that's unique for the firm. But yes, certainly something to consider. In fact, I would recommend it.
Yeah, good. How about client testimonials on social media?
That is something that you really have to be careful about. It's certainly a compliance question, so I would ultimately defer to any nuanced questions to the compliance team. But from a marketer's perspective, it's not something we really can be soliciting or asking for, because it falls under the general rule that you're not allowed to do testimonials at all. Yeah. So social media isn't included in that.
Yeah, I echo that. That is kind of one of the hard rules that we try to share with our members, is that testimonials really of any sort could get you into hot water. Okay, let's do some questions that were submitted before our event. What percentage of first year budget should be spent on marketing? I love that question.
Yeah, budget is a big one around launch. So happy to see that question come through. Marketing is, what we've seen within membership is that it's the fourth biggest expense that people are using their budget for, behind office space, salary, and software. Then comes marketing. So launching firms typically spend about 5% of revenue on marketing, but you might not really have revenue on day one. So if you look at the comparison of marketing spend to your salary spend, marketing spend is actually usually about a third of the launcher's expected salary, if that makes sense. So you can also find specific details about expenses in the benchmarking study, if you so choose to access that.
Awesome, good advice. Submitted live. What are your thoughts on doing market research for your niche before launch? Example, sending a survey about needs to potential clients.
Yeah.
Encourage?
Yeah, I think doing primary research on your niche or your kind of like ideal client is hugely valuable. Even if you have 15 conversations or 10 conversations, you are going to learn incredible things about how these people think, about planning, about finances, and it will be invaluable. It's actually one of the resources I have for members is a video training on what to do your first week of marketing. And the answer is interview people. Oh. So it is hugely valuable. And I will share, if anyone's interested in this, to look up Running Lean by Ash Mora. It's a book. It'll take you 3 hours to read, and it has scripts for how to interview people in order to actually get to what they truly think, because it's hard for any human brain to really pull out what I would want from a financial planner, particularly if I've never worked with one. So that book, Running Lean, has actual scripts that will get you to the true answer, not just like their first thought that comes to mind.
Awesome. What are the areas you should absolutely not skimp on regarding your marketing plan when someone is starting out on their own, but trying to be very mindful of costs?
Okay, yes. This question about like where to not skimp or where to spend requires some self-awareness of what are your skills and what are not your skills. Because if you know you're not very good at something, that's a great way to spend budget. Versus, oh, I'm really, really a natural, a speaker. It's like, you don't really need to spend budget on having someone help you with that. Just know where your skills are, know where you're lacking, and spend where you are lacking. A literal suggestion, a place to not skimp when you're building up your RIA, is anything that's visual. So in today's modern world, consumers have an expectation of the visual appeal of a business, particularly when they're expected to trust that business. So if you're nervous about the template you're using for your website, that's a great moment to spend some budget with someone who's good with visuals. Because that visual in the digital space is kind of like the body language of your firm. And we don't want the visual body language to keep someone from trusting you. So anything that's visual to the consumer is another great place to spend.
I love that body language of the visual. I'm interested in this next question is very much tied to the last one, but websites appear to be a potentially major cost for new solo RIAs. Can you discuss some ideas for keeping costs low as you build your website?
Yeah, so to keep your cost low on the website, you're going to have to spend more time. If you think about the website, it's very true, and with a lot of things, if you're wanting to spend little money, the time you're going to have to spend is higher. Versus if I'm willing to spend some money, you're going to save yourself some time. If you're willing to spend a lot of money, you might not have to spend any time. Okay, so there is that balance. You have to be aware that something has to go into this for it to be a good website. If you want to do low cost, I do recommend the website Wix, Wix.com. You can build out a really nice website even if you're a newbie, and they have lots of support documentation. So this isn't an official, sponsorship. It's just me. I like Wix, and I've seen advisors use it very well. But do know that about 34% of members who created their own site reported feeling satisfied with its impact on driving growth. That's 34%, compared to 55% of firms who hired a freelancer, or 60% of firms who hired an agency. So there is something to be said for a professional's help on your website in order for it to be an impactful part of your marketing.
Yeah, great. I've heard from a number of members that they just use their community that they already have relationships with to identify people who know web design and know how to build websites too. So and there's never any shame in asking around to see if anyone's got referrals as well. Inside XYPN member forums, we have a whole bunch of different referrals for folks to look into as well.
Awesome.
What are some of the best online tools, platforms to use to market the RIA? Is LinkedIn, other than LinkedIn, this listener has asked, what are some of the most effective free marketing tools to use?
Okay, free stuff. There's a lot out there. So when it comes to marketing tools, often you can do a lot for free, or you might level up and pay $10 a month for the special feature that you want. But I can talk about a few. Number one, most impactful free tool is Google Analytics.
Okay.
For anyone who's doing anything online and you have a website, you need Google Analytics. You can learn so much from seeing how people are interacting with your site. So number one. Number two is a lot of members are using MailChimp to send email campaigns. You've probably heard of MailChimp. I would also mention Canva, C-A-N-V-A, like Canvas, but without the S. And that is a design tool, so you don't have to be good at design. There's a lot of like beginner DIY assets on Canva. I would mention Unsplash as a good stock photography tool. And let's see, there's Calendly. That's a good scheduler tool. Many members are using Calendly. I use Calendly. Sumo.com, like sumowrestler.com. I would look at that if you want to build a list. They have lots of free tools for list building, but the list goes on and on. Certainly, those are some top ones that I see very, very popular.
Wow, I hope everyone's taking notes because Carolyn is filled with a lot of good recommendations. Carolyn, what is your take on blogging? I know a lot of people spend a lot of time doing it and not everyone says it's worth their time. What's your take?
Yes, blogging is a huge one. I'm excited to address this with folks that are on the line because it gets a lot of attention as a, you have to be doing it kind of thing. And it's simply not true. You can, and it can work. I see it work. But the questions to be asking yourself in order to even evaluate if it's worth considering are twofold. One is, am I good at writing? Do I want to write? Or is a person on my team good at writing and wants to write? Because it is certainly time consuming and it is not required. If you do like to write, that's awesome. We can use blogging to kind of display your skills and express your expertise and communicate a lot of things with people who are online. So that's the first thing. Is it a good fit for you? If it is, the next question is, does my ideal client want to sit and read a blog about personal finance, about planning, about etc.? Any topic under the realm of running an RIA? That answer might be no, because even if you're really good at it and you spend a lot of time doing it, if your audience doesn't really want to read them, it also won't work. So those two things should be really, really honestly thought about. If they're both yes, try it out. Give it 6 months of blogging once a week and evaluate after that, because it is also a long-term play. You'd have to give it about 6 months blogging once a week to really evaluate if it's working.
Great advice, Carolyn. Thank you. We did have someone say that maybe you should consider having a webinar on how to use Google Analytics.
Yes.
Add that to the lineup.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, we actually do have I gave a tour of Google Analytics inside membership. So that exists if you do become a member. And also Google has a lot of support documentation that they've released as well. So if you're a beginner, you could Google how to begin with Google Analytics, and they have a lot of tutorials accessible to anyone.
Great advice. I liked this question that came in from a listener on today's call. What's your thought on having a launch party? Perhaps how to target your niche and show them a good time? Is there a better time of day? Which day? Like a mixer? What does it look like? Have you heard of other members doing it?
Yes. I love a launch party for many reasons. Now, given today's environment, it does become a little challenging. I'm going to talk as if we're able to meet in a group of 50. So let's just put that out there. But when the day comes that we are able to, or you want to have a socially distanced launch party, I don't know. The concept is very good for multiple reasons, not the least of which is it gives you something to have people sign up for when you announce your launch. So remember, I said an asset is you need to have something for them to do other than call you. One of those things could be, oh, you heard I launched. Oh, you're excited. Oh, come to this launch party. And then the launch party can get them excited about the next step. So it's a beautiful step in their experience of getting excited that your firm is now alive. That's the primary reason I like it. Now, in terms of times of day, what to do, should there be booze or not, that kind of thing, depends on your group of people. At a general sense, I have seen Thursdays work really well. Thursday, kind of like immediately after work, if people are able to go straight from their work day to kind of like a happy hour on Thursday. Not many people have plans on Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday might be more family or spouse time. So Thursday, right after work, could be a good thing to consider if it's a fit for your group. And then, yeah, some snacks. Definitely have a moment where you welcome people, have some like funsies, make it memorable. I see it a lot. I see it work really well, particularly around launch.
Awesome. All right. What are your favorite mid-funnel marketing tactics?
I see this question, and I do have favorites. My favorites are because of how fun they are to do. When it comes to which ones are effective, that will really require the answer of what does your audience want to do. So an example of a middle funnel tactic is to offer a free course, right? So they're on your website. They found you because they Googled, or they were on, XYPN, Find an Advisor portal. Now they're on your website. They like what they see. They're not ready to call you, but you offer a 3-video free course. That's kind of one of my favorites right now because you are able to deliver value. They get to know you. They're seeing you teach them something on a video. It's really interactive. It's almost like a demo of what it would be like to work with you. I love that one. But who's your audience? If you told me you're working with people who, let's say, don't have time, they're not going to want to watch 3 hours worth of video. So we have to make sure we're very, very aware of your audience with any marketing decision. If on the flip side, you're working with entrepreneurs who have their own schedule and they're single without kids, sure, they'll probably sit on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. and watch all 3 videos in a row. So it's kind of depends there. But I would call that one out as a favorite.
Awesome. Great question. All right. Okay, let's have this be our last question. Thoughts on fourth quarter, late October to December launch? With such busy holiday times, how do we approach that?
Mm-hmm. If you want to go late October through December, somewhere in that area, there are perks to it, and there are also detractors. That's true for any time of year. So nothing to be scared about. Just be aware. Be aware that people are thinking about fun things like seeing family. They might be traveling. They might be spending a lot of money, right? So these things can be good and bad. Opportunities I see in the kind of like fourth quarter launch are primarily that you also will be seeing a lot of people. So launching around that time, it can be the first thing that you talk to people about. You might go really in depth with your cousin who is a CPA about your firm, or you might see those, high school best friends when you're visiting your hometown. So that's a real good perk because you're out and about and networking in a natural environment with people who care about you. That's really cool. The second thing I briefly mentioned, which is people are spending money. There's a lot of conversations to be had around the holiday season about spending. And also, you didn't list January, but everyone that's in December knows January is around the corner. Nice time to be talking about New Year's resolution, improving yourself, getting organized, many, many topical things to be discussing. So yeah, that's kind of some commentary around that.
Carolyn, you are a professional marketer. Your ideas and insight is so valuable. Thank you so much. I hope everyone is walking away from this webinar with a lot of answers and inspiration. This is just a sliver of what is in Carolyn's mind and what she has shared with our membership as a whole. If and when you do join XYPN, you will have full access to Carolyn's resources and things like that. So I do encourage you to continue to come back to webinars like this. We love hosting them. We really, really want to give you all all an inside look at the dream team at XYPN, the kind of resources you can expect when you are ready. And don't worry, there's no pressure from us. We understand that starting and running your RIA has to be done on your timeline. So we respect that, and we'll be excited to welcome you into the network when time is ready. I do want to make sure that we get feedback on today's webinar. We have switched this up a bit by bringing some XYPN teammates onto the webinars. I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you about whether you like this kind of content and whether this kind of academic perspective from our coaches is what you're craving. Of course, next month, we're going to have Carolyn's colleague, BB Webb, who is also recently on the podcast with the entire advisor success team talking about their resources for our advisors. But join me and BB next month. Carolyn, it's been a joy always to have worked with you over these years. Thank you so much for your insight and inspiration. All of you on the call today, I hope one day we can all meet for a high five. Have a safe, wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you back here next month. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.